Hello, and welcome to the Bomb Squad. This is our summer of guests, and this is writer director Andrew Jara, and I'm here with my co host Joshua Epp, and we are the Bomb Squad. We also have our guest here who's also a filmmaker. I'm going to say filmmaker because he has a lot of hats. He's done a lot of things, even on our stuff.
Yeah,
William Murdock, how are you?
very, very good. How are you guys doing?
I'm good.
Yeah, whatever, life.
Yeah, another day.
Yeah. We originally started this podcast to end at the end of the coronavirus, but now it will never end. So good
Yeah,
for our fans.
right. Keep the variants coming.
Yeah. So as you guys know by this point, we've released our films Borderland and The Last Ones from Bayview Entertainment. And actually William worked on both films. He's also worked on The Empty Space, which I always talk about, but we're
Mhm.
not talking about that right now. We're talking about Borderland and The Last Ones. William, on The Last Ones you were editor, and on
Right.
Borderland you were you composed all the music.
hmm Yes, sir.
So, for the last ones, what was your main takeaway from editing the film? I think it was like the first time any of us had edited like such a big project or even worked on like a feature.
Yeah, I think it was like how how scenes like combine with each other and just kind of like how to build momentum more because with the last ones it was it was you kind of knew where you wanted it to go. Like the emotions of the scene were generally pretty downtrodden, intense, with like some happiness sprinkled here and there. But with the empty space, it was kind of like the emotions were a lot more complex. And
Right.
so when you revealed something, you could have revealed things at many different times throughout the film to varying degrees, and it still would have made sense. But it was like finding the way to like reveal things in like the best way and like how to build up the scenes like emotional intensity as opposed to just like kind of like action intensity. It's kind of
Right.
like we really focused on more on this one than I remember doing on the last ones. I think.
Yeah. And I think like one of the things that I appreciated the most is that I remember like when we saw the first cut of the last ones and it was like 3 hours long.
Yeah,
But it was like edited so well that it didn't feel like at the point it was like, oh well, it doesn't feel like anything anything needs
yeah,
to be taken out. But we were able
right,
to like obviously we had to condense it down because it was 3 hours long. Um
yeah. Several
the
times I think we cut it down like three times.
Yeah, I think we cut it down like almost by half. But yeah,
Yeah,
but it was like that crazy thing where it's like you think like when you hear about these how they go from 3 hour cuts to like an hour and a half, you think that like the director's like, oh, we got to cut out these huge segments, but it's not really. It's like you cut out little part here, little part there, and you like it makes it flow better, and then you
yeah,
eventually there's no like, oh, this cut is garbage, we're gonna fix it. Like what am I,
yeah.
George
Just start
Lucas?
all the way over. Yeah, no way.
Yeah. So yeah, it was funny. I don't think I ever like when I before I didn't realize that that's how editing was. Where it's like sometimes you do have to take a hatchet, but sometimes it's little chisels.
Yeah, it's just trim and fat.
And as for Borderland, which you did the music on, what made you? What was your thoughts on getting into the music and like why did you pick the sound you went for?
I remember at the time it was kind of like most crime dramas, kind of where it wasn't like Stranger Things music where it was like super synthy, but it was like kind of like how Drive kind of like started that like sort of like nighttime sort of you know slow, weird, kind of intense music. And I feel like most action movies were kind of doing that for a few years, and so that's kind of like where I drew a lot of inspiration, which is kind of what was happening from around that time. And it just it sounds scary and dark, and like the whole movie just takes place at nighttime. And so it's just like, what music would you listen to if you were actually in this death-defying scene in real life?
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
fast-paced, kind of techno-ish kind of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like it had a good like feel of like kind of how it feels like this kind of aimless wandering too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Those are the two movies. Once we release Empty Space, we'll talk a little bit about that one. But let's get into our movie of the week. And William this week picked Twister. Now,
yeah,
Twister is the 1996 film directed by John de Bont, and it was written by Michael Crichton, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
And it wasn't based on his book. He was just like, "Oh, let me write this book about. I mean, let me just write this movie about twisters."
Yeah.
It's funny
And
too, because it was touched up by Joss Whedon, and once you know that, you're like, I can see the scenes where he touched it up
Oh,
too.
all the team scenes.
All the
yeah,
very
yeah,
quirky, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it stars Carrie Yules in a
Yeah.
playing against type because he's usually like
Yeah, he
the
has
charming
a
leading man.
Right.
halfway southern
The nice
accent
guy.
that he's trying with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Unrealized position.
Yeah, it sounds so because like it's not just that Carrie Yules look or sounds British; it's that he looks like a British person.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, he looks like the
Haircut.
guy from The Simpsons who's like stealing Homer's sugar for his tea. So yeah, and it also stars well, Philip Seymour Hoffman. You forget that Philip
Yeah,
Seymour Hoffman, like
right.
for a long time, he was like just the funny sidekick.
yeah, the goofy guy.
Yeah.
It's like, when did the transition to like being the dramatic best actor in most movies he's in? Like, when did that happen? Because
Ah,
You,
it
I
I
seems
don't,
mean,
very
Capote
abrupt.
probably. I think Capote was the first time he was like character and star. I think that's
yeah,
Mm.
like where he like really became like a leading man.
but I kind of think that it's a little bit like John C. Riley, where he just always switched back and forth. Because I remember like he was in
Totally.
Capote, and then he was in like Boogie Nights, which is kind of like a mix of both. But then he was in Along Came Polly as like the funny best
Oh
friend
yeah,
again. It's like you don't have to
yeah,
do this anymore.
right.
Yeah.
You're
You're no
good.
longer the child-starved asshole.
You could just
Yeah,
be in Schenectady, New York, if you want. That's
yeah.
Right.
You can draw
Written
me
just for
into
you.
your world of Schenectady, New York.
Yeah.
Um, and it stars the main lead as Helen Hunt and the late great Bill Paxton.
Right. Right.
So, Josh, why don't you give us a plot synopsis of Twister?
um, a team of storm chasers chases a storm.
Cool, but give it from the point of view of that girl who had to get Helen Hunt a lot of coffees.
Excuse me, can I have 8 coffees to go, please?
8?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Pain in the ass woman
8
doesn't
coffee.
makes me lose my house.
It's very
Yeah.
funny. Like, I was actually thinking about that during this movie because I was like, man, all these like random people who live in rural Oklahoma having to deal with multiple teams of storm chasers, like constantly like showing up. I would hate them too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, William, why did you pick? Also, I just want to say that it's cool that you picked Twister because it's like so far, it's like I think one of the oldest films that the guests have picked. They always pick early 2000 ones,
Oh,
so
very nice. Very
it was
nice.
kind of cool to go back. But why did you
Yeah.
pick Twister?
Well, it's like I feel like Twister was like one of like the main movies I watched as a kid, and like I had my VHS for like Twister and Jurassic Park and The Mummy and like Men in Black, and like though I always had those movies like with me if I went somewhere, and like I just watched them constantly. And whenever I met Leslie, for the audience that is my wife, uh, we went and saw Twister at like a little drive-in theater, and it just kind of like reinvigorated my love for it a little bit. And I don't know, I just realized like how formative that was, and like it kind of like deciding my tastes for like later on and everything, like just intense action, supreme entertainment. Like it's kind of like Jurassic Park in that way, where it's like every moment it's just like so good. Like it's all just like it never stops being just like this silly ball to the wall action movie. And I still love that to this day. Like John Wick is like that. Like just
Right.
begins, never stops, and it's just kick ass the whole time.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I enjoyed rewatching it because yeah, it is funny that it doesn't really get talked about that much considering how like much everyone watched Twister. Like it had like the
Yeah,
kind of significance of like the Matrix where there was so many jokes about like events that were happening from Twister just like in the zeitgeist of America.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's kind of disappeared, which is funny. But yeah, one of the things
Right.
that I really noticed was like, yeah, I think especially with you talking about Jurassic Park and Men in Black, it's just how different our blockbusters have changed. Because I mean, these
Right.
movies are blockbusters, but like if you look at the main characters, where like it's like Bill Paxton. He's like he plays like an ex storm chaser who's going to be a weatherman, and then
Yeah,
Helen Hunt is a current storm chaser, and she's like kind of obsessed with like getting it, and she is willing to like throw her life away just to figure out how to stop the tornadoes, or at least figure out how to understand them.
right.
And it's like, oh yeah, these are completely different characters than anyone else that was coming out in the
Yeah,
1990s. You know, like it's just such
totally.
a
It's also
this is
like the dynamic between them is interesting because I didn't remember most of this because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. But like she she won't sign the divorce papers not because she's like hates him, but because she like thinks he's like lying to himself about what he's
Right.
passionate about. And it's like
Mhm.
in any other movie, it would be a guy refusing to sign
yeah.
them for his
I
wife
noticed
because
that
he's
too.
Right.
evil. And I was like, that's so
Totally.
it's so weird to like flip that and also have it not be a negative like villain quality, you know?
Well, and
Yeah.
I thought about like because she very much plays like the Chris Pratt role from Lost World, where she's kind of like, oh, are you really gonna like you really want to go back to the corporate world? Like, don't you want to live out on the edge?
Yeah.
And I appreciated it that like it was a woman who was doing this as opposed to like because I mean they could have done it with the opposite way with Bill Paxton not wanting to sign it, but I feel like it would have been too cliched. Or making it
Yeah.
Helen Hunt, it kind of adds a new dynamic because yeah, she's almost like she doesn't want to sign it because she just wants him out there, which is an interesting like way
Yeah.
Right.
to
And
introduce this character.
what's funny about that too is that they do because Bill Paxton's there with his like new fiance, and they do
Hmm.
present her as like it's like look at this clueless buffoon, but it's like no, she's the only smart one in the movie. You shouldn't be doing any of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But I
this is
also think it
bad.
That's
was
the worst day of
interesting.
her fucking life.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was a couple of times where she's like, "Yeah, I want to go." I'd be like, "No, I would have already left." Like so many
Yeah.
times.
And she's just like breaking down crying and like actually going through like all of this trauma. And
Yeah.
Bill Paxton's just like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, I totally forgot you were here."
Yeah, and
And
like,
like,
and
I'm
because she has like
fine.
a job as like a therapist, and they're like,
Yeah.
"What a ridiculous job!" It's like you guys are literally
Yeah.
driving into tornadoes. I don't.
Right. And she's like a millionaire probably.
Yeah, and I really like that they made her into a therapist because again, they could have gone with, oh, she's just a dumb bimbo. Like she could have been like
Yeah.
the meteorologist would have been the cliched job description, but
Right. Someone from
they
his
make
new
her
job.
smart
Yeah.
and they make her like so she's almost the one who kind of comes to realization that not only does Helen Hunt still love Bill Paxton, but Bill
Yeah.
Paxton still kind of loves Helen Hunt, or at least the life that he
The
left
life
behind.
in Helen Hunt. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like
Um,
she just realizes it and like doesn't make a big deal. She's just like, you know what, fuck this. Like, you got to go do you. I'm not gonna change you, and I don't really need you that much. I have a lot going on for myself, and I will make my own way.
Yeah, I'm super attractive and I'm also a millionaire, so you have
Yeah.
fun with
So
whatever you're doing.
yeah, go drive in
Have
the
fun
mud.
dying in the next few years
Yeah.
because yeah.
Because that's the
Everyone's
only
gonna forget about
positive end.
tornadoes after Twister anyways, so your job is
Yeah.
over.
Also, you know what I also thought about, which was funny, is that I remember when Twister came out, they were like, "Oh, there'd be like this movie's so unrealistic. They would never have that many Twisters that close together." And then like global warming was like, "Well, let's see what we can do
Oh
between
yeah,
now
we'll
and
answer that
Yeah.
call, you.
yeah, let's make that into a reality, Bill Paxton."
Yeah.
Which I thought was like,
Sure
yeah,
will.
it was because I mean I know that was a major thing at the time where they were like, oh, that would never happen. There wouldn't be that many tornadoes, and then like this summer
Yeah.
alone, there was like 4 tornadoes in a row.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was
Yeah, and I feel like around that time period too, like we were kind of like obsessed with like destruction of major cities.
hmm
Like there was this movie, and there's like Independence Day, and like Titanic, which was one boat, but still,
But we
and then
really
like
like to
Mars
see shit get
Attack.
destroyed. Yeah,
Yeah, we were like really into that in that time period, and like even up to like the day after tomorrow, like that was like so cool back then, like just blowing all that shit up.
and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that this was like when surround sound was getting real good. Because I remember watching Twist,
Yeah.
and we even watched it like at the shitty dollar theaters. But like that
Hmm.
opening scene where it's just you're in the tornado, they
Oh
like the
yeah,
whole theater would shake at the time.
yeah, dude, the sound of that movie was so good.
Yeah.
Like it's like it sounds like this that first tornado and like all the lightning and everything. Like it sounded like they used like raptor sounds from like Jurassic
Yeah, I
Park, like
noticed
other
that. Yeah, with
monsters.
the
Yeah,
like with the tornadoes actually coming for the dad. Yeah, It does
Yeah,
sound
it's
very
like
like animalistic. Yeah,
yeah.
it's cool.
And I remember seeing that in theaters whenever like the dad gets taken by the tornado. Like that has been like burned onto my brain like since that day. Like that was just
Yeah.
such like a harrowing scene,
And
and
it's
it's just
so funny,
oh
like, yeah. It's so funny how it's because the movie is pretty like, I mean, there's definitely destruction, but it's pretty lighthearted as like you're never super worried about them. Like you always think they're gonna be smart enough to get out of it.
right.
But like that opening scene kind of shows you how bad the tornadoes can get, you know, and I think it was a smart
Hmm.
way to open it.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. On that actually, I really liked how they kind of balanced the tornadoes with the Jonas character because like there's like Jonas isn't really that scary. Like the tornadoes are super scary, and Jonas is just kind of like there to like more like drive the drama than like
Yeah.
take attention away from the tornadoes. And I really like that because he could have been like he could have like sabotaged their truck or something like that, like stupid. But like it's never like that. They're always gonna get the tornado. That's what it's about, and the bad guy doesn't detract in any way.
Yeah. It definitely feels more like a competition as opposed to like, oh, he's evil and he wants to stop. It's like, no, they just have different ideals about how to do this. And
Yeah, he
his
Right.
has a bit of
ideal just happens to
bravado.
be wrong. Yeah.
I,
Yeah. Yeah.
I did enjoy though because the big thing when Bill Paxton comes back is she built those the sensor machines, Dorothy,
Dorothy, yeah.
where it's the little
Yeah.
like circular sensors, and then you see his evil version of it has cube
Yeah.
sensors
Yeah.
instead.
And they look way cooler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
I
like
do.
gentlemen to evil.
Yeah. Stacked nicely on in my tornado machine.
Yeah, and I do like that it's like this was written by Michael Crichton. They're like, oh, and here's how this fake machine works. I was like, oh yeah, it was written by Michael Crichton.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It even opens
here's all
up
the
like the
science.
There's
Yeah.
yeah,
syringes in
there
Jurassic
the
Park.
my favorite thing is there's a sticker on the Dorothy that kind of explains what the Dorothy does, and I was like,
Yeah.
who is that for?
I know.
Is
Wait,
it
do we
for
put it in the tornado or
the like the scientists need like a little photo description to remind them, or
yeah.
is it for the tornado? Because nobody else is looking at this thing.
Yeah.
You're not selling this to the public, do you?
Right.
I don't. Yeah.
But I that is one of my favorite things about Michael Crichton. If he can fit like a marketing thing into it, he will. And I do kind of like how it is that thing. Oh, one of the other things I wanted to mention is another like little bit that I don't think I noticed as a kid is that they kind of they always make sure to emphasize like the not just the big force that storms do, but like the little force. Like there's the first scene where they're chasing the truck and they're like in the ditch, like riding down it. And Bill Paxton is like trying to grab something and he turns to say something to Helen Hunt and his face just slams into the back of the truck. And it's like, yeah, sometimes when you're in a storm, it's like sometimes it's not like the huge puddle that you have to get into. It's like the little tiny thing that you slip on. And I
Right.
really like that they really played up that aspect of like, yeah, like sometimes you don't realize how dangerous a storm is until you're face plant into the back of a truck.
Right. Because you can't prepare for that. Like, there's no testing center for like being in the middle of a tornado. Like,
Yeah, exactly,
and
exactly. Yeah, because I
it's
mean,
just so
even like
chaotic
speaking,
and scary.
yeah, I think like yeah, even speaking of like Titanic, it's not like James Cameron loves to show like the big effects of it, where it's like, yeah, then the ship's gonna go up and everyone's gonna slide down. But this one is like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, but sometimes when you're riding in the back of the truck, you're gonna lose your footing just because the truck is bouncing up and down, and like there's nothing to hold on to really.
Or like
Right.
when they're in that storm shelter, when like a random like what is it like a frisbee or something just nicks a guy's head and almost kills him. It's
Oh,
like, oh yeah, like a
yeah.
random rock would kill you by going 50
Yeah.
miles an hour like through your
Yeah.
body. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like we got cut off for a second, guys, but you know, it's around nowhere to cut back in. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I think like overall, especially if you're younger, I think this movie would be perfect to watch, like to see how blockbusters used to be. Because even if you see like the
Mhm.
Matrix, it feels very like the Matrix feels like a big grand movie, and I think that's kind of the start of
Yeah.
superhero movies, whether they want to admit it or not. But
Yeah. That's a good point.
yeah, but I think this one is like, oh, this is what big blockbuster movies were at the time because it is big, it's
Hmm.
grand, but it's also like
It's not
it's
timeless in that way, but it's still good. But you're like, oh, this is definitely of the 90s. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
human. It's very human in a way a lot of movies aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
So yeah,
Characters are all pretty solid.
I think it's worth watching. I mean, it was on HBO Max. I think it leaves this month, so check it out soon. But it's always kind of on HBO.
Oh yeah,
Max.
shout out! I don't. Do you guys?
Yeah.
Did you guys watch this on P? Do you have PS4s?
No, I have Google Chromecast.
I do have one, but I didn't watch it on that.
Yeah.
Oh, I
The HBO Max on the PS4 is absolute dog shit. Because I searched for T, and then it showed me everything with V in the title, and I searched for TW, and it's like no results. Go back. I'm like, why? What are you doing to me?
It Takes Two.
I had to find action movies and scroll down to Twister and hope that that's what the genre was considered.
It's like, and then I typed in
so
Twister
weird.
and it showed up for a second and it disappeared and it said nah nah nah.
You didn't say the magic word. Yeah.
It was Algae Rhythm from Space Jam Part 2.
HBO Max.
Oh my God.
Fix your app. It's worse than Disney
Well,
Plus.
but also I feel like you can just Comcast from HBO Max.
I thought I was like from my phone. I was gonna do it, but it's like I begrudgingly didn't want to have to do that. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, HBO Max, get your shit together so that people can enjoy Twister.
Yeah, please.
Also, it was funny because you mentioned Twister, and I was like, "Oh man, is Twister even on streaming?" And then I like looked it up, and I was like, "Oh, not only is it on streaming, but I already had it on my watch list on HBO Max."
Nice.
So I was ready to go.
How
But
weird is it that you reference Jurassic World Lost Kingdom like 4 times in this podcast? By the way,
it's my favorite one.
You're like, I like when a movie starts in a park and ends in a haunted mansion. It's always my favorite.
I was like, my favorite type.
Can you beat that?
My favorite type of movies are movies that start really strong and get worse every single scene.
every second. I actually like the second half of
Speaking of which, Borderland and and the last ones are available now.
Watching a whole bunch, yeah.
Just kidding, guys. They get better as the movie progresses. But yeah,
they had their ups and downs, but they overall get better.
Watch Borderland. Watch the last ones, both on streaming and to buy yourself a copy. Listen to Williams' music and see Williams' editing, which is less noticeable, thankfully. And then also it is also funny before we go that William is you did the music and you helped edit on The Empty Space.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our Infinity War where we've just brought all the powers together.
I know. Now things are disappearing.
Yeah. And now half my salary disappeared. But yeah, so guys, check us out. William, thank you for coming on and including our summer of guests. William, if anyone wants to find you, where should they go, or do you want to pimp your social media? I don't know if you're not as social media as I am, but
if you want to find me in the future, I'll be on the Round Rock Independent School District website.
You want to go to rate my teacher and give him a rating? After
if you like Williams, if you like Williams' music, go to Write My Teacher and put great job.
Yeah. No, that's about all I got at this point. I got an Instagram, but it's mostly just pictures of my cat.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah, every time there's never
private.
If I ever see a picture of you, I'm like, oh, Leslie posted a new picture.
Yeah, exactly.
But cool. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully you go check out Twister, and hopefully you go check out Borderland and the last ones. And we'll see you guys next time.
You next time on the Suck Zone. We're changing it officially. It sounds sexual even when I said it like that.
Yeah,
Jesus.
You put too much emphasis on
I'm like
suck.
the Suck Zone. Yeah.
Catch us next time catch these two dirty boys next time on the Suck Zone.
The Suck and Fuck Zone.
Imminent ruin.
We're gonna get sloppy. Anyway, this podcast is we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for coming.